All right, today we're going to pull back the curtain on something that happens all the time, right out in the open, but we rarely talk about its true cost. We're talking about the deep, systemic, and frankly, incredibly expensive impact of toxic management in our workplaces. We're going to see how a huge shift in thinking is creating environments that are not only damaging people, but are also terrible for the bottom line. So let's start with the feeling that's at the very heart of this whole issue.
Wow, this quote, it just nails it, doesn't it? That's the feeling. It's that internal chaos, that turmoil so many of us feel while we have to put on a brave face and act like everything's fine at work. This is the loud disquiet we're here to unpack.
So, what exactly is this loud disquiet? Well, think of it as that constant grinding friction between what you know is right, your professional values, and a system that forces you to compromise them. It's that knot in your stomach, that feeling of being trapped, forced to play a part that just eats away at you. But where in the world does this feeling come from? To really get it, we need to look at a massive shift in how we view some of our most important institutions.
So where did all this start? Well, a huge part of the problem, and you can see it really clearly in sectors like higher education, was this fundamental change in philosophy. The idea of treating a public service, like education, not as a public good, but as a for-profit business. And that single change in thinking kicked off a whole cascade of consequences.
And this slide just lays it all out crystal clear. On one side, you have the public good model. It's built on things like trust and professional autonomy, but then you have the business model, which throws that out and replaces it with commodification and control. And look, this isn't just about changing a few words on a mission statement, it's a complete change in the purpose of the work itself.
So, how does a big, abstract idea like marketization actually show up in your day-to-day job? Well, it doesn't just float in the air. It's put into practice through a very specific set of management tools. Mechanisms that are designed to make this business-first ideology a daily reality for everyone.
Constant surveillance and auditing. What does that say? It screams, we don't trust you to do your job. Then you've got these meaningless tick-box exercises that just waste everyone's time for the sake of appearances. Of course, workloads get heavier and heavier, creeping into your personal life. And what's the end result of all this? The slow, systematic destruction of a professional's most important asset, their autonomy.
And just listen to the words of the people who are actually living in these systems. Gagged, squashed, flying under the radar. I mean, that's not the language of a thriving collaborative workplace, is it? It's the language of survival. It's the direct human fallout from the management tactics we just talked about.
When that feeling of being squashed becomes the norm, it inevitably creates a culture where bullying can thrive. And the scale of this problem? It's just staggering. Get this, according to studies, New Zealand has the second worst record for workplace bullying in the entire developed world. This isn't about a few bad managers, this is a systemic crisis.
Now, you're probably thinking, okay, but surely there are processes to fix this. HR departments, investigations. But here's the tragic irony. The very system that's supposed to help often becomes just another weapon to be used against the person who is harmed.
This is what's known as the selector-instructor-paymaster model, and it creates this huge glaring conflict of interest. I mean, just think about it for a second. The employer, the one being accused, gets to pick the investigator, they get to define what the investigation can and can't look at, and they pay the bill at the end. How on earth can anyone expect a fair, independent outcome from a setup like that?
So, when those investigations inevitably fail to deliver justice, organizations often pull out a pretty predictable playbook. Step 1. Deny the problem exists. Step 2. Delay any real action. Step 3. Discredit the person who had the courage to speak up. They'll often use public money or insurance funds to drag things out in court for years. And finally, they'll use a non-disclosure agreement, an NDA, to buy the victim's silence, making sure the whole ugly problem stays buried.
Okay, so we've talked about the systems, the tactics, the corporate strategies, but we can't forget that behind all of this are real people. And the cost isn't some abstract number on a spreadsheet, it's paid for with their physical and their mental health. Let's take a look at the actual toll this takes.
We're not talking about just having a bad day at work. The documented health impacts are severe. We're talking about clinical depression, crippling anxiety, chronic insomnia. But here's the one that really stops you in your tracks. Post-traumatic stress disorder. That's right, PTSD. The same condition we associate with soldiers in combat zones is being diagnosed in people just because of their work environment. And if you think that's as bad as it gets, listen to this. Among the people who are so desperate that they reach out to anti-bullying advocacy groups for help, a staggering 50% report experiencing suicidal ideation. Let that sink in. Half of them were thinking about ending their own lives because of their job. This isn't a management issue anymore. It's a public health emergency.
And this kind of damage, it doesn't just stay with one person. It spreads. It poisons the well. This kind of intense pressure creates isolation. It shatters trust among colleagues. As one person so powerfully put it, this environment literally steals the soul of an entire department, leaving behind an empty, hollowed-out shell.
So, we've seen the devastating human cost. But if that's somehow not enough to convince people that something is deeply wrong, let's talk about the one thing every organization understands: money. Because this approach to management isn't just cruel, it's also incredibly, unbelievably expensive.
$1.34 billion. That's not a typo. That's the estimated cost of workplace bullying to New Zealand employers every single year. The very management style that's sold as being more efficient and businesslike is in reality a massive drain on the economy.
So where does a number that huge even come from? Well, part of it is absenteeism, people taking sick leave. But a massive, often hidden cost is something called presenteeism. You know that feeling? You're physically at your desk, but your head is just somewhere else. You're so stressed or unwell that you can't actually be productive. That's presenteeism, and it's a huge productivity killer. Add in the sky-high costs of replacing people who leave, and you start to see how the numbers add up.
And that billion-dollar figure? That's really just the tip of the iceberg. I mean, how do you even put a price tag on losing decades of experience and knowledge when your best people just vote with their feet and leave? What about the millions of dollars spent on external lawyers to fight fires instead of investing that money to actually fix the culture? These are the hidden costs that just slowly bleed an organization dry. So let's step back for a second. When you put it all together, the ideology of control, the specific tactics, the devastating human suffering, and the incredible economic waste, what do you actually have? What does it all point to? Well, it points to a deep, underlying culture, a philosophy that the research calls a sacrificial ethos. So what's a sacrificial ethos? It's a culture that has decided, whether they say it out loud or not, that its people are expendable. A culture where the quantifiable outputs, the metrics, and protecting the organization's reputation are way more important than the well-being of the actual human beings who make the place run.
And that really leaves us with one final, unavoidable question. This entire system, this whole way of thinking, is often justified in the name of efficiency. But if that efficiency is achieved by crushing people's spirits, destroying their mental health, and costing the economy billions of dollars, is it really efficient at all? Or have we just completely lost sight of what we were trying to build in the first place?